start recording.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We got a action-packed show today. I know Jim is en route, so he's not gonna be able to make it with us. I'll share out real quick the agenda, and I think we have Michelle up first, but let me just share this out, what we're going to be doing today. So Michelle did an awesome job. She's got the cyber defense matrix. She thinks she may have even pushed it to everybody, but I have her go over that. I don't know if you have anything updating on office hours. Then we're going to go to Adam. He's got some updates on the product side, and then we'll be talking a little bit about revisiting Chip, our friends at Microsoft, and what's happening there, because it's pretty interesting. So with that, Michelle, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope everyone had a great time. That was at Schnitt's Fest. I know some people, like Andy, had a really good time, and I just want to confirm with him before I show the video.
Oh, you're welcome to show it. I don't know if it's really interesting.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I would say, I don't know if we have a win of the week, but this would be my win of the week if I had to pick one. All right, let me see if I can get to play.
Ask about wins.
This is the win of the week. Can you guys see my computer, my screen?
Sassy Cowboy. Oh my God. They had a mechanical. Oh, go ahead.
What's happening? Oh, there we go.
Oh, shit. I think they're playing music.
You guys. All right, so I mean, that was kind of amazing. I don't know if you've ever tried to ride a mechanical bull, but he stayed on. I mean, he didn't go flying.
Yeah, the operator was being nice to you, and
he was.
I got talked into one of those at a Sage convention in, like, I don't know, 2007, and that guy was just mean, and I was in the air in about 4 seconds.
Well, I was told that I made it to intermediate level 1.
That's
good.
So believe it or not, yeah, Chip, sorry, Ben asked me if we're going to do that at Right Boom. Believe it or not, John Strand for Wild West Hackin' Fest, if any of you have ever gone, he believes in the bull riding so much that he actually purchased one.
Oh, wow.
At all BHIS events, there is the mechanical bill. So I could ask him if we can borrow it, but I don't know what our liability goes up to then.
Oh, you sign it away. You say there's definitely a waiver of all rights.
Was there really?
Oh yeah.
Andy?
Wow.
Well, if you bring one, Andrew, I can guarantee you that I'll pass.
You have to have a moderate controller, right? So it builds up.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing. I would love to get a copy of that video.
Yes, absolutely. Of course. Now on to more professional items. I will show you the cyber defense matrix that you guys can use. Andrew, do you want to walk them through it?
Actually, it would be a Ben thing. Ben created.
Ben.
I'm actually eating my lunch, so you guys need to do that now. Yeah, so we kind of broke it down graphically up here at the top of this screen, and as you drill down, it kind of discusses how we're protecting you with each one of these controls, or at least assisting the people especially when you get to the recovery process, and making that a lot easier for them.
I think I appreciate, by the way, if you go back one, Michelle, I think adding the cost is really important.
Mm-hmm.
You can really talk to that. Everybody can talk to that with their clients about, whatever products and services we're talking about, really showing them the shift from left to right in terms of when an event occurs, what's involved, technology versus people, and the costs. Because that is like literally like, you can sit there very independently go, work with us, don't work with us. Here's what is true. Us aside, this is what is actual facts, right? Once you cross over detection, the costs skyrocket. So, really good stuff.
And then that second page breaks it down by devices, applications, data, and users. I did just put that in the chat, the file, so you can grab it from there if you want. Andy has a question.
Is it reasonable or unreasonable to ask that you add dollars to this square matrix as well to say this is why it costs more?
If you can
Well,
find
you'd be adding them down the left hand, the first column.
Or under each of those to say automation, some protection. Once you get beyond detect, if you go to respond and recover, it's now cyber attorneys. It's, a whole bunch of stuff that begins to happen.
This is my opinion, Andy. Like the first one is really your talking point, whereas
Yep.
this is the Gary Peak, right? This is ingredients.
Okay, fair
Right.
enough.
The first one's chocolate cake. People, again, you're painting broad strokes in the first one. Great. Hey, can we talk about your incident response plan? Do you have one? Do you have have you segmented and have you looked at what are the most, if you did have an incident, what would you bring up first? What's most critical? Have you thought about, like, you're probing and not giving them any FUD. You're just saying, have you thought about this? What would you do? How would you handle it? Because as we move to the right, then you could talk about that, Andy. Like, okay, you mentioned you have an incident response plan. Well, have you tested it out? Like, who calls cyber? Take me through the steps. Do you call your insurance company first? Do you call an incident response firm first to kind of, deliberate whether we do have a real incident here, and then take me through the steps. And when you're asking them those questions, you're not sitting there pushing technology or anything. You're really asking them about, take me through your process. What do you guys do in the event this happens? How do you handle it? How do you notify your customers? How do you notify your suppliers? Right? How do you pay your people if your payroll systems are down? You can't get to their data. So, but great job, Ben and Michelle. This is fantastic.
And like I said, I dropped that in the chat, so you're welcome to use that.
Thank you, Andy, for bringing it up.
Yes.
I have a question. This is Peter Simon. Do you have some kind of a matrix of what it would cost for them to piecemeal competing technology together to achieve the same results that we're achieving here?
We don't have anything.
Just a rough idea. What
Currently. I mean, we have a like something that compares Microsoft security, I think, but I don't know that we have anything that pieces everything. You know what? I need to look.
I would suggest having this be a manpower related. If you were to have your own team do this for you, what would it cost? How would you configure Microsoft, Google, or Salesforce, right?
I'd like to offer the last time I asked Chip about that, he didn't have a manpower number, but it started the wheels spinning. And I think we were at 6 million lines of code at that point. So you guys can sort of, there's a benchmark. And that was a year ago, Andy. So I have no idea where we've landed since, but yeah, a lot of code and a lot of time.
And a whole bunch of labor.
I'd comment that we can, it would take us some time, Peter, to pull this together, but I think the biggest savings are manpower, and they come from two places. Number one, three places now, actually, I think about it. The act of monitoring logs which was our initial mission for SaaS Alerts when we released the very first, piece of the product, the managed side of it. That in and of itself is more manpower than most MSPs or small companies can actually muster. Like they literally can't do it, and can't do it across all their organizations, and then provide, a long tail of history that the logging has been done, that the monitoring has been completed. So you could compare, I suppose, if you had to put a single tech on each customer once a week to, configure reporting and stay on top of logs, you go through logs that are coming out, what would that cost you? The second piece is Fortify. If you had to go in and individually manage every one of the policies that are configured by Fortify one at a time across each company, you're looking at hundreds of man hours a year, to go through and maintain that. And then Respond, doing the response piece automatically, again, saves a lot of time, even if it's only a 10-minute exercise for a tech to log into the appropriate tenant, block a sign-in, reset tokens, take the actions that you would want to take when you suspect a compromise. That quickly adds up again into dozens of hours a year, even for a relatively small MSP. So I think, we could help assess those values, but I think we'd actually want some feedback from you guys in the community, in the categories. What do you think you would be spending in man hours to accomplish the same tasks? If you give us some feedback, I know, Michelle could probably quickly turn that into a document to help it make sense. And that then translates then directly into, in terms of a client conversation. Look, the reason we want to use this tool is because, we would need to charge hours for doing these things if we're not using the tool. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It's one of the things I'm struggling with right now with this process. Is it an existing client? He's the IT director, and it's a co-managed environment in multiple offices throughout the country, probably about just shy of 1,000 employees. And one of the feedback comments I got from him was he thought this is nice to have. I said, this is for the price of what you're paying here. This is more than nice to have. This could pay for itself in less than a year. Just and I've already used the man hours saved line, but still, I got to get him over that line to change his mindset.
Yeah.
I said that if I reached out to the CFO and used, I hate to do this, but if I used the FUD tactic, he would jump on it. Said, look, if you were down. If you went down for a couple of hours or even a couple of days, can you still survive? And I'm sure he'll sign off on it, but I don't want to go over the IT director's head.
Well, I think, Peter, the thing too is, and we're going to be talking about this, we're going to bring back up Microsoft and the Midnight Blizzard compromise, which we brought up last week, because it's still very much in the news, and it's going to get a lot more in the news, I think. Well, we're going to have a conversation about this shortly. I think the bigger question is staying away from, look, the small costs. Like you and I are talking right now about whatever the price is, Peter, $2 an endpoint. That's the small cost. Talk to me about how you guys detect password spraying, how you guys detect token reuse. In the event that you guys had somebody wire in, or exfiltrate data incorrectly or wire funds incorrectly, walk me through the plan. Walk me through your plan if you're down. Like, I want to stay away from it's $2 an endpoint, because to me, again, that's not the conversation. It's the conversation is, what are you doing? Because you're telling me this is expensive. No problem, it's expensive. Tell me what you're doing to mitigate, right? Here, let's look at either the Verizon threat report, the Mandiant threat report, IBM's threat report. If we know credential reuse and credential compromise and token reuse, right, are invalid credentials are 80% of all attacks. What are you guys doing?
I'd give you another thread to throw at it, Peter. I mean, there's lots of different ways to look at this. If cost is one of the objections, I'd say, okay, so you're 1,000 employees, I'm going to charge you $3 an employee to put this on. That's $36,000 a year. You let's say that you run SaaSlets for 10 years across 1,000 employees. I can almost guarantee you that over the course of 10 years, you're going to have a breach and a data theft and a data loss that's going to damage the company's reputation and or result in direct litigation from somebody else that you've damaged. And it's going to cost you triple that, 10 times that. I mean, those are the numbers that are out there, the stats that are out there in terms of how costly a single event is. And the fact that, you increase the probability of capturing a compromised account exponentially by using a tool like us. It's not just us. It's, use some tool. Back to Andy's point, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You have to make them realize that the investment is dirt cheap compared to what a single incident can cost if you actually have an account compromise that leads to data exfiltration. I just read last night in the Wall Street Journal about 23andMe. You guys all know that company, right? I assume you do. 23andMe's stock is almost at zero. They raised $4.5 billion and have gone through almost all of it from when they went public. And they have, and they cite the fact that they had data breach that literally, we talked about their data breach not long ago, last fall on this call, that literally handed over the account data of all 6.5 million customers. And it has killed the company. They're dead.
Yeah, and so I think that the point, Chip, is like, you bring up an excellent point. That here's what I've found a lot of times with people. They're very resistant. Oh, well, it hasn't happened to us. It won't happen to us, because again, humans. Can I just be a little crass, Chip, real quick here? Humans.
Hey, it's your call. You can be as crass as you want.
So humans suck with a capital S at judging risk. Right? There's studies on it. So that's why I try to veer more towards, okay, it's expensive. So I want to help me understand this. And this is like, you're walking them through, let's do a tabletop exercise on me. Walk me through, right? Your mitigation. Walk me through your controls. Walk me through what's your policy say? Right? Walk me through the steps that when you have an account compromise, what do you do? What's your policy say?
Hey, Peter, I've got a question just based on the size of the organization.
Yeah,
are they
true.
Are they a services company, a product company? I mean, I would almost think that they themselves have to be complying with some sort of framework for how they're managing information resources, whether it's SOC 2 or if they're in medical, it's HIPAA or it's both. So that there's got to be controls that they're required to have at a company of that size. Like the 10-person company, the 15-person company that a lot of MSPs help, that doesn't apply. But 1,000 people, I would think they're spending a lot of money already to demonstrate IT controls.
You would be surprised. No, without disclosing the industry, you would be very surprised. They don't even have a CISO.
But what kind of business are they in, Peter? What kind of industry?
Don't say it if you feel like it compromises stuff.
Yeah, until I close the deal. Let me, and I'll be happy to share it afterwards. Yes.
Yep.
They do have to comply with protecting PII, such as the California and many other state regulations.
Yep.
So the other thing to ask them, last thing, Peter, as we just kind of keep beating this horse or bull. But the other question I want to know is, what are their contractual obligations to their customer, to their suppliers, do they have contractual obligations to bigger customers? Like, that's a lot of times, again, they're thinking very myopically because I'm the IT guy, right? But let's just say let's just make this up. It's a big manufacturer, right? And their customer is in the supply chain, and they have in their contracts that breach notification is in X amount of days and that they require logging of X, Y. So I want to pull the strings of, hey, you probably have, right, like most companies, 80% of your revenue probably comes from a few accounts. Am I close? Right? And this, ask yourselves, right, on this call. I got to believe 80% of your MSP revenue comes from probably 10 accounts and or less. So the question then becomes, what are those contractual obligations to your biggest customers?
You bring up some very valid points, questions to ask. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's very helpful. The challenge right now is getting him to another call. We just had a call with him back in December. We met for lunch as well. So yeah, to bring up those are some good questions to ask.
Yeah. So final question I've got for you is, are they already a customer of yours and you're just trying to add a tool in here, or
They are.
They are. Okay.
They
Okay.
are a customer. Yeah.
Have you put them on the platform and just let it collect data for 30 days, pull them off before you get billed for it?
I did. Yes, I did.
And they just didn't see.
He didn't bite. No, we were supposed to have a follow-up call with the two people that work day in and day out with the Office 365 environment. The IT director doesn't have his hands on there every day, like the way the two people that were
Right.
evaluating it. So we're supposed to have a follow-up call. I want to get them to a call, and I believe that once we do that, pretty sure to get them over the line.
Were there any any types of events that you saw of interest in 30 days?
There was, yeah, if I could try to recall what they were. Unsuccessful login attempts from overseas. I had another one, by the way. It's a nonprofit that I was doing an evaluation for, and they just shot it down, saying we don't have the budget until June. It's about 85 employees, and we ran a pen test on them and took a little over 24 hours, one of the autonomous pen test tools. And one of the things that I say is this pen test just exposed outright incompetence on their part. And on top of that, with SMB servers wide open, domain credentials easily compromised, 94 out of 190 ransomware exceptions. One of the things I found in SaaS alerts was that the IT director, his credentials are under constant attack with password resets from a China telecom IP address. And they came back to me and said, we don't have the budget until June. I said, great, tell that to the ransomware operators.
Well, again, that's great to Peter. It's like, great, you don't have the budget. So if there's, I don't know, like it's a nonprofit, right? And often nonprofits have to provide services. So let's just say it's a nonprofit providing human health services, right? That's down, right? Again, what's your contractual obligations to the state, right? If you're a healthcare organization, let's just again role play this out, and you have data exfiltration, right? You have breach notification. What's your plan there? By the way, what's your plan if there's a $500,000 ransom and you can't come back up? Again, I want to stay away from the product. The product will get sold easily, in my opinion, if we're asking, what's the plan? Walk me through it.
Yeah, I love the approach, Andrew, because I like to try and avoid, whenever possible, selling on FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and try to appeal to people based on your comment, actually, that risk management is an undervalued part of human nature, and get them to think about, okay, what are we going to do? We know we need a plan and we have requirements to comply with things. So how do we most economically go about doing that? So
yeah, take me out of the equation. All right, you're not going to buy my product. I'm curious. I'm here to help you. Walk me through it. Let's go through it.
So Peter, last comment I'd make is for a deal you're trying to land of that size, I would reach out to your account manager here at SaaS Alerts and see if they can arrange for if you're open to it and your client is open to it, for one of our team to help you with a closing call.
Sure. Yeah, we've been discussing it as well. Yes.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, Peter, humiliation is always a big winning factor at the end. Just no kidding.
Well,
All right.
if it doesn't work ever, I can almost guarantee you there's going to be an "I told you so" moment in the
Of
future.
course.
That's
Yeah.
the scary part. My friend suggested to me, send a copy of that pen test report to the executives of the company. I said, I don't, that's that's like if I do that, I shoot myself in the foot. It'll probably, might get people fired. I'm not looking to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an extreme measure. If you send that to the CFO or the CEOs, this is, this is what we're seeing in your environment.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, if you're seeing those, they're of course no access broker has sold those, right? That's what you tell the guy. Hey, I'm sure no access. I found them, but I'm sure no access broker has ever found them.
Like that.
All right. Adam, you got some cool stuff for us, I hear.
I hope so. So a few items that are new and noteworthy from my side of the house this week. We announced our initial integration for Halo PSA. So that was in like the top 5 requested integrations in our community. So I've just dropped the link for that in the chat window. If you are a Halo PSA partner, then those are the instructions to get us connected. We have started with ticketing first. So oh, wow, my brain, I think I just blue screened as I was talking. We started with ticketing first. We'll be moving over to the contract and the synchronization of billable users like we do with the other PSAs, but wanted to get this one out first and fast, and get it in your hands before we moved on to the contract stuff. So any Halo PSA partners on this call that are excited about that? I'd love to get some immediate excitement for getting it done. While I'm waiting on that, the other exciting piece is that we've extended our Unify integration. And just by numbers, I checked this morning, only 20% of our partners are actually using Unify, which still blows my mind considering, just like all of our other modules, it's included. And if you've got your RMM connected, there's really no reason not to take the additional step to go ahead and map the accounts and let it to start discovering devices and enhancing the events that we're getting in from all of the apps that we're monitoring. It provides some amazing contextual information to let you know whether the person is performing that SaaS activity on an RMM managed device. It's one of the, I hope you guys will be talking about that at the token hijacking seminar you'll be doing here shortly, Chip. But I think it's a great way to really truly know that the authentications are happening from a known good computer. So with the extension of Unify into knowing what an intra-device ID, that really just advances us further into being very confident on whether a device is a real device or not, or a real user, or the expected account that you were expecting on that login or the file activity or whatever it is. So I will drop in the instructions for Unify, which is just the generic instructions to set it up, as well as the Microsoft Entra device ID instructions. So just at a high level, for those of you who are not taking advantage of Unify yet, initially when we released, we were really comparing the IP address, the OS, and some permutations of the email address and full name against the last logged in user and the device name and the RMM to do the magic that we're doing. By adding the Entra device ID in, we're now you know, we're pulling in something that's a globally unique identifier. And if somebody is saying, you know, here's Microsoft is saying it's happening from this Entra ID, and the device that's registered to the user is showing the same one, that's a pretty solid handshake for confidence. And then when you marry this data that we're now enriching the events with, or the alerts with, being able to attach it to respond is really, really powerful. And I'd love to see more of our partners using that feature. I did get I got a chat from a couple people here, direct message. We did a walkthrough on yesterday's or Tuesday's office hours. So I think that's recorded. I think it's accessible. And I go into much greater depth on how to configure it, what the data means, and all of those things. There was a filter in our office hours that I was using on our QA platform that somebody pointed out today that wasn't there, and that hopefully will be in the production platform here by the end of the day. What else? Oh, and I've got a message here from Eric. Yes, I am very aware of your inability to connect in Central. That's been a lively discussion with my senior engineer today. So I'm just watching the chat window here. So the last piece mentioning is we had a partner come to us and say, hey, why are you not monitoring DNS and telling us if the DMARC, DCAM, and SPF records are set up properly? And why aren't you using Fortify to make sure that that is enforced? And kind of just bringing it to our community at large. Is that something that you see as being significant value, adding significant value? And is it something that SaaS alerts should be approaching? You know, my personal opinion is that's kind of dipping into the email DNS side of the world. But I'd be interested on the opinions.
Chad gave you a hard no.
Hard no.
Yep.
Hard
By the
no
way,
as in not using one of these products, or hard no on the DCAM?
hard no as in we don't need to do that. Andy came back and said there's lots of other solutions. Yeah, I think there are a bazillion DNS checkers out there that, you know, anyone can use. And for us to do that integration, it would only be really useful if somebody's registrar and start of authority was either Google or Microsoft. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and that's why I was saying, like, there's two sides of the house. There's the configuring your own records, but then there's the potential Fortify to make sure that you're dropping or marking messages automatically that are not adhering. And I think that's something that we could do, but, you know, does it jump in line in front of anything else that we're actively working on? And so it looks like my initial gut that I was talking with Liron today was, let's ask, but I don't think this is our lane, so to speak. Looking for the other stuff here. So I think that's all I've got.
I think Andy has a question.
Sorry about that, Adam.
Yeah, too.
Sorry about that.
I just put it in chat. I figured that might be helpful. And I would say the opposite of that, Adam, is there a value that could be presented by SaaS alerts to other email solutions that there's a dynamic where you're able to say, hey, look, this has changed. We need to be sensitive to it, or vice versa. We're detecting an attack. Has anything changed? That might be that kind of communication with a third party like that might also be helpful.
so Andy, I've thought about that question specifically around third-party phishing monitoring solutions. You know, obviously Microsoft and Google both have their own anti-phishing solutions built into the product. But I've wondered for a while if there's a product or a couple of products that are widely used among our base of partners that if we were to pull in phishing alerts there, they would be useful to present in SaaS alerts. So I'm not looking for an answer to that question, but if you guys, want to talk amongst yourselves over the next couple of weeks, and if there is feedback that's a sensible flow, then that is something that I would think it's useful if there's a platform or two platforms that are widely used across the entire environment? Or does everybody just use the native stuff from Microsoft and Google?
Hey everyone, Roman from Nero. I can speak for everyone else. We used to have Mimecast, but we noticed that Microsoft started doing exactly the same thing. So yeah, we use Microsoft, and like I mentioned on the call yesterday, integrating with XDR would be great. Whether it's Defender for Endpoint or Defender for Office, that would greatly enrich all the alerts. Because all of our customers are greatly tied into Intune and Azure with all business premium or higher licensing. So that is something I would love to see XDR alerts, the whole umbrella of XDR alerts.
Thanks, Roman.
I see a message in here says from Dan, would love to get the malware link clicked alerts into SaaS and user risk. I don't exactly know what that means. Maybe somebody on our team does.
That's the kind of the security center and compliance center. It's similar to the Defender for Office. I've looked at those alerts this week.
Yeah, so with Sentinel, we also have Sentinel running side by side with SaaS alerts, and that brings it in. So it's like user clicked malicious URL in email, and or emails were removed after user received it. It's, to me, there's a lot of it's 95% false positive, or it's doing its job and it's filtering out the obvious BS emails. We haven't found anything relevant, anything like, hey, that's a real thing from those alerts. So to me, for Sentinel at least, it was just noise.
I put that in because we've had a lot of users click on malicious links that are zapped afterwards. They are malicious. They end up getting a token hijacked afterwards. So it would be nice if they were brought in just so we can use that inside of the respond rules as well to do a quick lock on the account prior to the bad actor trying to, take the token.
And if you were to take that a step further with an integration with an RMM to go down and maybe extract the token or detect it, if there's so many pieces here, Chip, that begin to fall into place as we begin to get more real-time information.
Yeah, Dan, if you wouldn't mind, just shooting an email into support with an enhancement request and kind of flesh that out. I think the value that I see there is that it would allow aggressive partners to get even one step ahead in the TTP chain of how the attack is evolving.
Yeah, exactly. And it would be great to just revoke the token immediately, even if it wasn't given out from a user possibly putting in their credentials. You revoke their tokens and you're making the account safe immediately.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a good one.
Sure.
Any others, Chip, that we want to address here?
I think we'll run through the chat and after the call. And see if there's anything else that we want to pull out. But I think that's all some really good feedback.
All right. Good. Michelle, I think we are up to speed. Let me just check. Okay.
Oh, wait, I just want to say one thing. We did have an error in the cyber defense matrix that I initially posted. I deleted it. I don't know if it deletes. So I put a new one in there. Please use that one. I just transposed one of the rows. So use the new one. Thank you.
Okay. Chip, I know you're busy, but I know you read a lot. And for those that were with us last week, this is getting real interesting. Last week we talked about Microsoft being compromised. Have you seen the continuation of this saga, Chip?
I haven't actually, Andrew. I've been completely head down in ISO audit for the last week, so I haven't followed up on that particular one. But I'm looking at this, the subtext in this graphic and going, okay, now let's talk.
Yeah.
So
this is getting really, and again, I'm not here. So let me put the caveat, right? Please don't think I'm a doomsdayer and I'm you know, that this is the next SolarWinds or anything. But there's more to this, and that comes not just from me, but an op-ed I'm going to share with you from a Stanford professor that also acts as the chief trust officer at SentinelOne. Now you might say, "Oh, SentinelOne's a competitor to Microsoft, et cetera," but the gentleman brings up some very valid and questions in the op-ed, and I'll share this all with you momentarily. So I just want us to all have a conversation about this. So last week we went through and that said, hey, Microsoft, right, we know had a air quoting legacy application, legacy email
tenant. Yeah,
legacy tenant. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chip. Legacy tenant that was compromised through a password spray attack. Lo and behold, just a week later, Hewlett Packard, small little company, also comes out and says, hey, you know, we were compromised by a similar, not similar, the same, this is the Russian group SVR. And here's, and again, realize these are SEC, they have to disclose to the SEC now. So think about this. Come back to your, Peter, your question around how do I talk to my client about SaaS alerts? So in the SEC filing notified, the HPE said in December 12th that the hackers got in May. In May. This is HPE. This isn't, some, mom and pop lawn care. All right. So then it goes on to talk about the op-ed, the guy at SentinelOne says is like, he calls it Microsoft's dangerous addiction to security revenue. And this is the gentleman, his name's Alex Stamos. And I'll get Michelle all the links and all this. So please don't worry if I don't get them up into Zoom in time for you. But I wanted to show you guys this. I'm going to switch screens and bring up the articles for us to dig into them a little more. But Chip, this is where I wanted to show you this because Entra came up today from Adam, is that Alex says, hey, what's really interesting here about this whole legacy, and I've got a quote or two here coming up here, is that this means that other companies were compromised using the same flaws in Entra, better known as Azure Active Directory. And let me come back to that in a second, Chip, because I'd like your comments on this. But look at this. Several sources indicate that at least 10 more companies are going to be disclosing soon about this. And again, this is a Chip legacy environment. So the question becomes, is there, with the smoke, is there some real fire here when he's sitting there saying, how could a non-production system, right, lead to so many emails and of key Microsoft employees? And when we dig momentarily into the actual article, I'll bring it up for everybody, you'll see that it goes on into talking about this in more detail. But Chip, you're obviously, you're in the Microsoft world and their APIs and day in and day out. But at a technical level, can you help me kind of unpack what your spidey senses might be thinking here?
Well, yeah, a couple of comments. The first is when you went through this in the beginning, I was going to stop you, but I'm glad I decided not to. Just to recap for anybody that wasn't on the call last week, as we were talking about this, that this legacy system that Microsoft had out there that was compromised by a password spray attack. Let's just stop it right there. Password spray attacking, it implies that they have a live tenant out there with accounts on it with no MFA set up that were, hacked just by somebody throwing passwords at it until they got in. Now they're in, and this quote unquote legacy tenant that Microsoft claims was being used for research and other stuff somehow had enough administrative authority that the hacker was able to traverse over to Microsoft's main corporate network and download and exfiltrate data from the email accounts of the security team, the senior leadership team, and other executives. So
Legal team.
yeah, so like the importance of that still is mind-boggling to me. Like, here's a company that does provide a lot of tools if they're configured correctly to prevent this kind of stuff, and their own systems weren't. So that is mind-boggling. In the next slide that you have here, that it seems that Alex or somebody is trying to at the top, 10 more companies, legacy systems. I don't know that these other 10 companies are going to have anything to do with legacy systems at all, unless what we find out, and following comment is 1000% speculation, and I definitely believe not likely, unless we were to find out that this test tenant of Microsoft's was somehow administratively a super user on the entire 365 system. That's the only way I could think of that legacy systems would still roll in here. But the fact that your comment is the comment in the articles that Microsoft has an addiction to security revenue, and this goes back to all the way back to last year with Microsoft's other hack that got announced, and senators coming out and saying, why is Microsoft selling a product? They're selling a car without putting tires on it, or putting donuts on it and sending you down the road. They have the security tools. They just want to grab more money. It's about a revenue heist. But this whole topic is why, Andrew, my Write a Boom presentation coming up is going to be all around token theft, session token theft, because this is the underlying core. It's ironic that Microsoft's was just a regular old run-of-the-mill, late 1990s, early 2000s password spray attack. Like, that still is mind-boggling. But it's session token theft that's really driving the big problem. And I'll share a couple of the numbers on this call that I'm going to share later on in an upcoming webinar, and then a Write a Boom. SaaS alerts alone, and guys, we are minuscule. Like, all of us together on these calls, all of our customers, we are like not even a flea on a flea's butt in terms of the number of accounts that are available to be managed and compromised out there in the world. And in 2023, just us, you guys, it's not SaaS alerts, but you guys using our product, stopped over 7,000 active breaches with Respond. Now, if you extrapolate that out on the number of accounts that we monitor, and you look at the number of accounts there are just in North America, business accounts using either Microsoft 365 and Google, and cut all the numbers in half, just saying, what, there's 50% of them are false positives, you still come up with well over 500,000 accounts that get compromised and have data exfiltration every year. It's a massive, massive problem. And Peter, back to you. This is the kind of stuff that clients need to know and understand, just how dangerous this is. And there aren't a lot of tools out there that can recognize with a high degree of probability when an account has been compromised and then take action against it. So that's why it's so important. Leron dug up a stat for us. I think he's still on the call, but I'm not sure. I think it was 249 days is the average length of time it takes an enterprise organization to discover a data exfiltration or compromised account. That's a staggering number, aligns very closely with this HP Enterprise piece that you just provided, Andrew. And we as a community, like everyone involved in supporting information technology and trying to keep people from getting breached and having data exfiltration, we've got to get that number down, to hours and then minutes, and if possible, even seconds. So I don't know, that's my rant on it, Andrew.
What I find fascinating, so this is the article on HPE. What I find fascinating, to your point, legacy, well, I think we're going to find out, to your point, Chip, this is their live environment that got compromised. And what's interesting about this is a few things stood out at me. now again, I don't know if the author of this, and again, I don't know if Microsoft continues to spin, but it's really interesting when you read it. So first, it's about a misconfigured quote unquote test account, which again, now we've gone from legacy to test account, right? To where is it here? This is the fun part that really I was like, you got to be kidding me. They said this. Where is it here? Oh, so then it goes to originally it was pass spraying. Now it's brute force.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Which is,
let's change up the terminology here. Brute force and password spray are not the same thing.
They are not the same thing. And so it's like at an abundance of caution. Like, so you got to wonder here, like I said, and I'm not trying to be like, it just really, my antennas are up here. You have two huge publicly traded companies that are, HP and Microsoft need one another, right? In terms of they coexist together in a lot of their systems. And so I find this article pretty fascinating. Where else? Let me just see what other things here were just really interesting. Oh, there was something else here that originally it's just so bizarre that it talks about an M365 email, the email compromise, but then they go on to say, oh, well, it was a SharePoint. That's how they got in, with SharePoint. And I'm like, really? SharePoint? Here. So gained access through SharePoint. So
Well,
now that, yeah.
I it's odd that they jump around, but I kind of agree with this. Andrew, one of my themes is, hey, why are we using the term business email compromise? It's not a business email compromise. It's an account compromise.
Right,
right. The only part of it that is business email is the fact that somebody clicked on a phishing email and then stupidly went and entered their credentials and their MFA token and everything else into a bogus account. So yes, it starts out, usually starts out in email, although not always. This can go on with smishing. It could go on. There's lots of different ways that an attacker could get someone's attention to get them the credentials is. But both 365 and Google, these are knowledge worker platforms that provide all the tools, spreadsheets, documents, everything else under the sun. And to me, that as soon as that account is compromised, you've got the universe. And that's why it's so dangerous. Like, people immediately go, of course they're going to go to SharePoint. Like, that's where the data's stored, and head to that person's OneDrive. Hell, they'll go to Teams and see if they can gain anything there. I'm
not disagreeing. That again, this is the problem I have, or again, either this author's horrible, or again, the SEC filing is, horrible.
Yeah. Whoever put together the combination is at best imprecise and at worst incompetent.
Correct. And so this is the op-ed, if you will, by Alex, where he rips into Microsoft, that they continue to downplay the attack. He goes into your point around OAuth. He's very speculative about this being a legacy application.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
A legacy tenant? Like, I'd love to.
It's a pre-existing tenant. That's all it is.
I wish we were in a room right now, because I'd love to like get a show of hands of how many people actually believe that this is what happened.
And this is a little bit where he gets a little bit, sarcastic, but this is pretty good. The Cybersecurity Chutzpah Hall of Fame, where Microsoft now recommends the following, since this, for all of their potential, for cloud info. So here, Peter, this is, Microsoft's way of upselling. They're telling their clients to roll out the following premium services. So, you don't get compromised the way we did.
There's so much irony in that. That's almost as good as the creepy senators yesterday drilling the social media creepy CEOs. They're like that whole thing. I don't know if anybody watched that, but there was so much irony in that. And this is definitely up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Google does the same thing, by the way. Just so we're not letting anybody off the hook. I know most of our audience is all Microsoft all the time, but they're no worse or better, I think, than Google. I won't get into it, but we've experienced some stuff going through our regular audit process where one of the things we've recognized is that Google security monitoring basically keeps trying to recommend that we buy more products to do a different kind of security monitoring. It's like this little loop they have going on. So everybody's looking to find a way to add incremental dollars to already paying users. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. Well, I have something next week. I didn't have time for it today, but really interesting study on the near-term impact of AI on cyber threat. It's a really good article. We'll get more into it next week. But this is really, really fascinating about where the puck is going. This UK cyber report does a great job in talking about, the likelihood and where things are going to be used by the threat actors and how we can also use them. So anyway, do you guys want those URLs, by the way, to those articles?
Yeah, definitely, especially that last one.
The op-ed?
Yeah. No, the AI one.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Is the first one I'm putting in there is the op-ed. Second one I'm putting in here is about HPE's attack, very similar to Microsoft's, and we're going to be staying tuned because, again, if they're saying that there's 10 more coming, Chip, those are more than likely public companies.
Big public companies, yeah.
Public companies, because they have to disclose. So
I saw somebody in the chat as you were talking about this said, hey, get your credit monitoring in line, guys. I think that's good advice.
Get what?
Get your credit monitoring and tuned up.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, Chip, where, and I'd love you to think about, like, from a monitoring perspective, if this is indeed like what SaaS alerts may be able to monitor around this, if this is any type of Entra mishap or anything around that. I don't know what's possible from your platform, but I think there's more coming. I don't think this is over.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I also think that we've already seen it. Like, and when I say we, I mean the SaaS alerts community, our partners, and what they're reporting, the data that's coming out of Respond, the things we've been talking about. Like we collectively have been banging this drum since early last year. I don't want to pat us all on the back, but we've been saying, look, there's a huge uptick in the data that we're seeing in our tiny little company, monitoring only 2 million out of hundreds of millions of accounts. We're seeing this big uptick in accounts getting compromised. So something's going on. I don't think we're big enough to get anybody's attention, that they're going to say, well, SaaS alerts data is an indication of a trend, but I kind of feel like we've been ahead of it.
Chip,
Yeah,
may I ask make an observation? What if you had a web page like the U.S. government debt that says compromises attempted, compromises stopped, and just have it roll?
It's an interesting notion, Andy. I'm a very cautious person, and one of the things I try to do is not try to attract the wrong attention.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
I'm glad Jim wasn't on the call, because Jim would have gone, oh my God, Andy, I love that. Let's get that up on our website next week.
Well, or you could put it inside the login. And so then we could actually show customers, this is what's happening globally for SaaS alerts, and this is what's happening for you.
I'll tell you what I'll make a commitment to doing. Since we pulled the data out for the 2023 SASE report, which we're going to release at Right a Boom, one of the things that Leron is working on is we're going to start tracking those numbers every week. We're going to report them internally in our SLT call, because we're very, very interested in seeing this trend, and we'll bring those numbers to this call once we start weekly reporting on it.
And graph it, make it visual. and there's like these charts that are live motion, just kind of show it taking off. I mean, there's some really neat things that could be done there.
Yeah, we can do that. Then we're going to start picking our own wins of the week because we know who this happens to. Obviously, we know which customers it happens to. We know which partners that have configured those customers correctly or using great respond rules. So we can actually, I don't know, maybe we'll start coming out and giving a weekly award for the partner who has the biggest number of catches.
Or say, this is the rule that's helping biggest number of catches. Here, partners, leverage this and do that through office hours.
Yeah, we absolutely can.
Cool.
All right, everybody. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you all in just a week from now.
Thanks, Andrew. See you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.